Welcome to the Leadership Lounge, your go-to podcast for insightful conversations, expert advice, and strategies to elevate your leadership. I'm your host, Karie Millspaugh, best-selling author, award-winning motivational speaker, and executive leadership coach. In my profession, I've seen firsthand the daily stresses executives face and how, together, we've overcome these challenges with expert guidance. Whether you're a seasoned leader, aspiring executive, or entrepreneur, this show is for those ready to lead with impact and purpose. This isn't just about theory, it's about practical, real-life application. Tune in for inspiring stories, actionable advice, and leadership lessons you can implement right away to drive success in your career and organization. Let's dive into today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Lounge. And today in my hot seat, I have Andrew Oxley. And before I go into the nitty-gritty of what makes him so reputable, what gives him value, what gives him accountability, and why I've chosen him to be in my hot seat today, I want to just reflect because I just did the interview before I record the intro, and it was very eye-opening. It was exactly what I needed in this moment of personal and professional life. His outlook was refreshing. He's got the best energy, just very empathetic leadership guide from the side kind of energy. And I learned a lot today. So if you're a personal development junkie like myself and you love personality assessments and other things like the DISC association or the DISC assessment or the Myers-Briggs, things of that nature, and you've taken them before as a leader or even in your team, and you're not sure like what they even mean, we're going to really take a fun, deep dive on the 4 frustrations in leadership. It really is eye-opening, and how to categorize them, because sometimes it's just we need to put it in a box to know how to work through this. And as leaders, we sometimes need to have a point of reference when you're working with a teammate or an employee or whatever you call them in your organization, and you need to put them in that point of reference box, like, oh, I know how to deal with a type of teammate, and I'm going to pull my reference of files in the A category over here. It's hugely helpful. Okay, you're going to love it. I'm raw, I'm real, I'm having my own aha moments in this actual episode. So live it with me. Let me go into the details though of who Andrew is. Okay, so I'm sitting down with Andrew Oxley, who is a recognized author, executive coach, and the founder of the Oxley Group, where he helps high-performing leaders and teams cut through complexity, boost performance, and scale results without burning out. With decades of experience guiding executives at companies such as Coca-Cola, you might have heard a few of these, Turner Broadcasting, Progressive Insurance, Cox Communications, Andrew is known for his ability to turn frustration into fuel. Isn't that cool? Frustration into fuel for real sustainable growth. In his latest book, The 4 Faces of Frustration, is a business fable that offers leaders a powerful roadmap to transform leadership strain into strategic advantage. Whether you're managing people, driving change, or feeling stretched too thin, Andrew's insight systems and signature no corporate BS approach will give you tools to actually you can use starting today, right? So please help me welcome Andrew. Hello there, Andrew Oxley. Today in my hot seat of the Leadership Lounge, I've got an amazing leader in front of me who's part of the Oxley Group, and he is an author. There's just so much fun things. I've been thinking about interviewing him all morning. I've got my questions over here. So you are in the hot seat, Andrew. Welcome.
I love the hot seat. Thank you for having me, Karie.
I love it. So I like to always kind of go back. I think it's important to know who we're even listening to. Like, how did you get here? Kind of give us a short version of that journey. Why leaders? Like, why leadership? It's such a fun platform for me, but I want to know why you chose it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I chose it as much as it chose me. I actually had a very circuitous route to where I am today. I actually studied engineering in college. And I like to joke that I was in the 25% of the class that made the top 75% possible. And so, in my final year, I had a business professor who said to me, you should probably do something with technical sales. And so that's what I decided to do. I went out, I started selling commercial air conditioning in Toronto and did that for about 7 years. And then I had what I affectionately now refer to as my midlife crisis, which I'm hoping wasn't the actual midpoint of my life, because I'm approaching the end, if that's the case. But it was definitely a midlife crisis for me. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I didn't want to continue on the path I was on. And so I decided to immigrate to the United States, and I decided to start a company helping leaders figure out how to live a life of purpose and value and achievement. Because sometimes we get the purpose and value, and sometimes we get the achievement, but rolling it all together sometimes is a bit of a challenge for people. And so doing all those things. Now, I knew 3 people in the U.S. at the time. 2 were my parents, so they were not going to employ me. So I had a rocky start at the beginning, but we got some great clients early out of the gate. Coca-Cola, Mohawk Industries, Progressive Insurance were great clients for us, and still are to this day. But it was interesting because I actually started a business to help people figure out something that I'd not figured out myself yet. So that was an interesting learning curve for me, because I actually had to figure this out, and I've been doing it now for about 30 years. And I would say for the last 25 years, we've really been able to put together some pretty interesting intellectual property and models that help leaders figure out how to do those 2 things, live a life of purpose and value and achievement, without essentially working, what I was doing in Toronto, which was 60 to 80 to 100 hours a week.
Yes. I just wrote an article about that on LinkedIn, how to have success without the burnout, or it comes with a price. In my mind, I think, gosh, do I even want what they have? Because they look like they're just haggard and they have no life. Their weekends are staring at their phone or they're on their laptop. I want to connect and hang out with my family, people that matter. So is it a myth that you can have both work-life balance, can you have success without burnout, is what I just want to kind of get your take on.
I mean, I think the short answer to the question is yes. The magic is in how, right?
Yes.
And I think the problem is, and I think we've been sold this myth that we should work smarter, not harder. And I always tell my kids the prerequisite to that statement is you should start working hard first, because if you're not working hard, right, you won't learn the lessons that are necessary to work smarter. So that working hard will take you to a place of diminishing returns. And when you get to that place, you're like, okay, I can't work any more hours. How do I need to work differently? What I see sometimes young people today doing is they try to work smarter out of the gate, and they don't work hard. They don't actually put in the effort. And you have to learn your craft. You have to learn. And I remember we were talking about public speaking before we got on the podcast, and I thought I was a okay public speaker, and then I did, I think, 300 presentations in a 12-month period, and I learned I wasn't that good, because the results and the feedback was immediate. And so, over that course of that year, I got the timing down, and I got my way I interacted with audiences down, and I learned what worked and what didn't work. But that was hard. If I tried to say, well, I'm just going to work smarter, I'm not sure I would have been able to make that level of progress within a 12-month period. So I think, the question around burnout is, what causes us to burn out quite often is a lack of passion for that which we are applying ourselves to. And part of the reason we lack passion is we start to get comfortable and we give up on the things that we wanted, and we start settling for what we think we can get. And one of the things that when we challenge leaders to balance purpose with achievement is we're like, why would you be passionate? Like, what are you passionate about? And a lot of times leaders look at us and they're like, I don't know. They've just lost the spark. And well, when you lose the spark, when you lose the purpose, when you lose the reason why you were getting up and going to work in the first place, other than supporting people at home, which of course is important, then burnout is almost inevitable, because it's just a drudgery then. I love Earl Nightingale's quote. He said, most Americans sleepwalk through life hoping to make it safely to death. And I'm like, yeah, that. I don't think that's why we were put on this earth. We were not put on this earth to just survive, to fight another day. So if you're a leader and you're listening to this and you're like, I sort of feel like that's what I'm doing. I'm surviving to fight another day. You know, at some point you have to stop asking yourself, what incremental changes do I need to make? And like, what really needs to change? And when you settle on that, you won't know how to do it. But that's the point. That's, it's not the questions you have the answers to that are going to move you forward. It's the questions you don't have the answers to.
Yes. And having that natural curiosity to figure it out, that's how you're going to grow. It's so true. It goes back to the why. Why did you start in the first place? Why did you choose this profession? And sometimes we just have to backpedal to get to that root cause again and find it, that flame, and just like ignite it again. Nothing is more powerful than inspired action. When you have something just burning inside of you. I've done it. I've written books where I'm up all night long. I don't want to stop. I'm in that flow. I'm in that zone.
Yeah.
And you're like, did I even eat today? It's just, that's a whole nother type of passion. And it goes back to the why every time. It points us back to that. And I do agree with you. With the executives I work with, they're just getting up, going through the motions half-heartedly. This almost like they're just robots at this point. They're all turned into AI robots, unfortunately. But in the tech industry, we joke about it. But it's sad to say you almost have to take some backpedaling to get to that why again. And once you see it, and that person comes back to life again, like, oh yeah, or I'm saving for this trip. This is why I'm putting the hours now, or I'm building this business now because it's going to give me freedom later. And, it's just forgetting that in the moment. I love that reminder. So I love your book title, The 4 Faces of Frustration. Can you tell me what those faces are? And is one of them mine? I'm just kidding.
Yes, without question. And I'm going to describe them, and I'm going to ask you what you think you might be. But so years ago, we were working with all sorts of different assessments and ideas around how to communicate more effectively, because leadership truly is all about communication. And, I read some years ago, that the quality of your life is based on the quality of your relationships, and the quality of your relationships is going to be based on the quality of your communication. So how do we communicate more effectively? Now, the problem is I always know what I mean. Like, I always know what I'm trying to say. The problem is, does the person I'm talking to know? And am I doing things that are damaging the relationship, damaging my ability to communicate effectively? And I found that that's quite often true for leaders, because we don't necessarily communicate the way that the person wants to be communicated with. We communicate with what's comfortable for us, right? So the most immediate example is pace, right? So do I communicate really quickly or really slowly? And if we don't match pace, that's an immediate break in rapport for people. And the world is, pretty evenly split on this. So you have a 50-50 chance of pissing people off on the pace question, right? So we were trying to figure out, well, if I'm going to do this effectively, I have to be able to ascertain relatively quickly in moments that matter what the communication style of other people is. And so we started looking at this and working with clients, because the great thing about what I do and what you do, of course, we get to test stuff out. And so we tested this, and we were like, okay, when is it easiest to recognize someone's communication style? And we found out that not only is it easiest when they're frustrated, but it's when they're frustrated that it's most critical to know what their communication style is, because that's the moments of truth in a relationship, right? So how do people act when they're frustrated? Well, first we have to distinguish between anger and frustration. Everybody gets angry from time to time. I mean, maybe you don't. I've been known to sometimes get angry. But 3 of the 4 communication styles transition through anger into what we would refer to as frustration. One sort of stays looking angry all the time. It's never fast enough. It's never good enough. It's when you ask them when you need something, it's like yesterday, which is impossible, right? So we call those the red face. Red is the color of passion. And in the defense of the reds, they're not really angry all the time, but they are passionate. And the passion feels like heat to other people. So if you know someone in your life who, it's sort of like they're so driven, and they just don't slow down, and they don't listen very well, and they're just, want to get to the top of the hill, fast, preferably. And they don't mind if other people come along, but by gosh, they're annoying sometimes, and they just want to talk. Well, can we talk later, please? So those are the reds. Okay.
I've worked through some of those reds.
Yeah. And by the way, huge preponderance of reds in leadership positions. Please do not infer from this that they make better leaders. They could. That's a skill issue. I'm not saying they can't, but they like to be in charge.
Yes.
In fact, if a red works for you, probably feel like you work for them. So that's reds. Move fast, very driven, very task oriented. Now, then you have the yellows, and yellows are also like to move fast, but they're not really into the details, and they love building relationships. They like to hug people when they meet them. They think this builds rapport with others. It doesn't, just with other yellows. It actually sort of, there's other behavioral styles that really don't like it at all. So they're like, why are you touching me? I don't know you. But when yellows get frustrated, they might get angry initially, but then they transition into optimism, and yellow is the color of optimism and the sun. And they start telling you, you know, what's good about this? We're going to get through it. And, very motivational and great at building relationships with people, but they don't really solve the problem quite often. They just try to convince you there's not a problem. And so that's the yellow. Very people oriented, very warm. Emotions all show up outside for the yellow. And then staying with the people orientation, we move around to the greens, and greens are they're a mystery to most people. They are very quiet when they first meet people. They make suggestions, which are actually opinions, but nobody knows it's an opinion. When they get frustrated, they get quiet. They just stop talking. And they're plotting your demise usually. So they're, that's a challenge for many leaders, because they misinterpret the quietness for acceptance. And the green didn't accept what you were saying. They were thinking about it, and they were trying to figure out how to get you to listen to them, but you're not listening, because you're busy moving on to the next problem. So the face for the green is like no emotion. This is a big challenge for a lot of leaders, because, when people get quiet, they look disengaged. And so, we complain as leaders that people are not engaged. And the biggest group in any company are greens. They're 34% of the general population. The longer an employee has been at a company, the more likely it is that they are actually a green. Greens are incredibly loyal. They stick around. Now they could stick around and they're good, and they could stick around and they're not good, but they're going to stick around as a general rule. Very, very loyal people. Make great leaders, but they don't like to be in leadership positions. Usually because the role models of leadership are not greens. So, now one lady that, incredibly successful leader, Tricia Griffiths at Progressive. She's the CEO of Progressive. It's gone through tremendous growth since she took the helm. She's a yellow green. She's all about people. And I think organizations need more examples of diverse leadership, because it actually makes for better leadership teams and more perspectives. So that's the greens, quieter, a little slower moving. I say slower, not slower. They don't want to run off the cliff. And then the last group is the blues, and the blues are the detail-oriented people, the accountants, the engineers, the people who are the bean counters. They have got tons of questions when they're frustrated, because they can see the potholes in the road and no one else is paying attention to them. Somebody's got to pay attention to it, So they look like they're worried. So the faces are the red, who looks a little angry. The yellow looks like he's smiley. The green, which has no emotion, and the blue, which looks worried, because then they're asking tons of questions. So you all probably know somebody when they're frustrated. You've seen the signs. So what do they do? Not when they're angry, but when they're frustrated. Do they start locking down and getting quiet? Do they lock down, ask tons of questions? Do they start telling you everything's going to be fine? Or do they just sort of try to run you over? So once you know that, then you have a little bit of a roadmap of how to deal with that particular person, because what is probably natural for us is probably not best. So that's sort of like the overview of the model.
I love that. It reminds me of the DISC assessment. Is it similar?
Yes. It is very similar. It's based off it. But what we found with DISC was that most people, when they do a DISC assessment, they sort of find out, well, I'm a D, I'm an I, I'm an S, but they're never taught what to do with that.
Right.
Or I'm a golden retriever, or I'm an owl. Well, great. But what does that mean from a leadership context? And so, yes, and so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it very operational and memorable so that people just don't know what they are. They can figure out what that person is. And now what do I need to do differently in order to build a relationship with that person?
I love that you give us permission to be more than one color, because it's like I don't fit all in that one box. And it's true. It's when you're frustrated, not who you are in your natural environment when everything's going your way. It's that when conflict shows up, how do you react?
Yes. Yeah, there's this myth that when things are at their worst, we're at our best. And it's a bit of a myth. Now, we can be, but usually if we were like to take ourselves out of the mix and think about other people, we know they're not at their best when things are at their worst. And then, so we have these interactions and they don't go well. And we tell ourselves this lie. We say, I'll do it differently next time.
Right.
And we don't. We do it exactly the same way because it's a habit. It's a natural reaction for us. So, what we're always trying to do is we're trying to create models that explain complex things in very simple terms that people can go, oh, okay. So when I'm dealing with a red, what they need from me is this. And what I really want to do is this. And every time I do this, it doesn't work. So it's not like you need to become someone you're not. Just in the moment, you have to be uncomfortable in the way you respond.
Right. Absolutely. How to adapt and shift and change. So as you're leading, is there a test or a quiz, or are you just looking for the signs that your team is falling into one of these categories?
Yeah. Well, of course, with our clients, we actually have a learning platform which we put them on, and they can actually plot their people and compare and stuff like that live online. But in terms of just generally, when you're working with people, it's actually not that hard to figure out what people are if you start looking for it, right? And you mentioned that you're not just one behavioral style, right? So there's one of them probably of the four. Like when I was describing that, there was one of them that you probably thought, yeah, those are the people that frustrate me the most. They're the people that I just don't understand them. Like what they do is the exact opposite of what I would do. We call this your shadow.
Yes.
Not because they're in the shadows, but they're in the shadows for you. Like, I don't understand them. Like, why would someone do that? Like, that's the exact opposite. And so it's not so much that you want to, you have to understand all the styles, because there's probably 2 or 3 that you get, but there's one you don't. So if you can just watch for when you are interacting with those individuals, that's going to be like a huge step forward for most people.
It's the red ones that definitely are challenging. They're the most driven. They're generally leaders. They're usually business owners. They run big companies. They come across almost dictator-like it's my way or the highway. So those are the most challenging to coach at some point, but they're also so self-driven that they can be easy to coach as well. But it's the navigating that. If they're open to awareness, self-awareness, and have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, you can actually work with them. But I find it so intriguing. I used to work for a global coaching company that we would take our DISC assessment and it would be on a plaque on our desk. So you knew who you were going to interact with before you even got to that project conversation. And this person's this way, they're super analytical. I'm not going to hug them. They're probably not going to want a hug from Karie today. They're probably going to think I'm a little too bubbly for them. I'm going to tone down my energy a little bit and come at them with some analytical reporting and talk to them on their level. So, I love that the more education you get, the more you can adapt for the situation and work as a team, because that's what it's all about, is getting the work done, creating a pleasant
Yeah.
atmosphere and learning off of each other's strengths, thriving off of your strengths. I can see using something like this, especially in a virtual world now, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
coaching and working with executives all over the world, of having it like on your Zoom or your Teams, or you're like a little icon or a pin you can wear to like show I'm a red today and I've got a mad face. No, this is or like a temperature check in when you first call, start a meeting. Where's everybody at? And they're like popping in the chat. I'm red, I'm yellow, I'm green. So, I
Yeah.
mean, does it change from time to time, or are you pretty much always that person? Do you see that? Um, it fluctuates a little bit. Do people get to be, is there one color that's like the goal, or it is what it is?
Now, most people are a mix. You mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier, right? Most people are not just one color. I mean, I did coach a CEO one time who was just red. I
Yeah.
mean, it was everything else was really low. He was super high red, and he scared the hell out of people. Um, and he was a super nice guy. He was so hurt that people were afraid of him, and they thought he was,
Mm-hmm.
not a very nice person. And I had to say to him, this doesn't mean you're not a nice person. But you have to be aware of how you're coming across. So,
Right.
when we first came up with the model, I thought Reds would be sort of offended that we used the angry face for them. And I had a couple of them say to me, "You're damn right we're angry. Why don't people just do their dang job?" So I was like, okay, so it's okay. Now, I have a lot of red in my behavioral style. I'm a red yellow,
Okay.
100 red, 100 yellow. You can feel sorry for my wife. But, she said to me one time, and I didn't know I came across as angry, but she
Mm.
said to me one time, she said, "Why are you so angry?" And it made me angry that she thought I was angry. And I said, I responded like very emphatically that I wasn't angry. And she just started laughing at me. She's like, "So you're angry that I told you you were angry?" And she said, I was like, wow. And what I started realizing was not only does it help you understand other people, but it helps you understand how you come across to others. That sometimes I'm a lot. Um, Somebody said to me years ago, they said, "What's it like to be on the other side of you?" So your audience might think about it like that. Like, what's it like to be on the other side of you? And when I was asked that question, I said, "It's wonderful." And they looked at me, and they said, I know you think so, but it's not always. And I was like, wow, so when is it not? And they told me when it wasn't, right? And it was when I got the red really high, right? Or the yellow when I was like not addressing issues and stuff. And
Yeah.
so, so as leaders, not only does it help us understand others, but you got to understand yourself first. If your job as a leader is to influence other people, but if I don't even understand myself, how am I ever going to influence other people, right? Because what we do too often is we double down on whatever we are when things aren't going well. So I become
Yeah.
more red, or I become more yellow, more blue, more green, and maybe that's not what this situation requires. So you are naturally probably one or two colors, probably, but usually it's two or three colors. There's one that's like super low for you typically.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing what happens when you get frustrated allows you to be more aware of how you look to other people. And like now when people say there's like certain keywords that you look like when you're frustrated, when you're a red, when people say, "Why are you, being so controlling?" And I don't think I'm
Mm.
being controlling. Um, Probably I'm stressed, and
Yeah.
I'm not even realizing how I'm coming across to another person. So rather than saying I'm not,
Mm.
I need to slow down and say, okay, clearly that's the way I'm coming across to this person in this moment. So how do I need to be different in the moment? I'm never going to be like different on a
Right.
wholesale level, but in the moment, how do I need to adjust?
Yeah, that's so intriguing, because I would say I'm a yellow green. And with sometimes there's a red that pops up, and it's that painful trigger or something that just is a no, don't cross that line zone, and the red will show up. She will come out, and she's scary. She's got horns.
So interestingly about greens, I had a client years ago who he was, we were doing this session, and he said, yeah, greens are stamp collectors. And I said, really? What do you mean by that? And he said, well, we have a sheet with your name at the top of it. And when you piss us off, we put a stamp on the page. We don't necessarily say anything about it, but when the whole page is full, you're going to hear about the whole dang page. And see, what everyone else does is they respond to the last stamp and they said, but all I said was this. And it's not about that. It's about all this stuff that's been happening. And so now in that brief moment when the green responds because the page is full, they look like a red. But they can't maintain that level of intensity for long, and they start feeling bad that they blew up, and they go back to collecting stamps again because it doesn't work when I try to tell people how I really feel. Now, I'm not an advocate of stamp collecting. It's not a good thing, but I think what I have found, and this is for your non-green leaders on the podcast, we often accuse people of being passive aggressive. Mm-hmm. I would just challenge you that quite often, not always, but quite often, passive aggressive behavior is caused by very strong leaders and their employees don't feel like they can talk to them.
Right. There's not a safe space.
So emotion that is not expressed doesn't go away. It subverts and usually shows up in passive aggressive behavior. So if you're seeing passive aggressive behavior from your team, it doesn't mean it's okay. But maybe the first person we need to check in the mirror with is ourselves and say, is it possible that the way I'm leading this team is not creating enough space for them to actually tell me how they're feeling? Because what we do quite often is a green comes up and tells us how they feel, and we say, you shouldn't feel that way. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Well, that doesn't change how they feel. Now they just feel like they can't talk to you about how they feel.
Right. Yep. You just suppressed it.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anybody. That's a beautiful visual. Thank you for that. That was helpful in so many ways, not just professionally, but personally and everything in between and raising kids. I think that applies for everything across the gamut.
It does.
Because as leaders, I always say we're not just leaders in the workplace. We're leaders at home. We're leaders in, our environment, in our community. It's something that you just embrace. It's your lifestyle. So yes, all the tools we learn can be applied and cross-pollinated everywhere. I love that. I'm digesting what you just said. So this book, is it available on Amazon? I mean, where can I get it? And why is it written in a fable format is another question I have for you.
Yeah, so it is available on Amazon. Okay. First of all, there's another way you can get it. We'll talk about later. But the reason I wrote it as a fable is, and you can't see all the books behind me, but I've got like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of business books obviously for the same reason you probably have tons of books. Because I don't love reading like nonfiction. I actually do it because it helps me serve my clients better. But most of them are so dang boring. And if you ask most people, did you read that book? They're like, well, I read the first part of it. And then I think I got the general gist of what was happening. So I put it on this, but we want to have the book on our shelf, right? So one of the very first books I read was a book by an Israeli, I'm forgetting his name right now, but anyway, it's called The Goal. Okay. And it was written as a fable. And I loved the book. And I read the whole book and I was like, and I love the concepts in the book. So I thought, well, when I'm going to write this book, I want to write a book that is easy to read, but has the lessons embedded within the story. And so that's why I chose a fable. It's a super easy read. And it's about a guy who takes over a company, and he's like super excited that he's got this promotion. And then he realized that he was given the job because no one else wanted it, essentially. And he's got 4 direct reports. And as you might gather, one of each of the faces is present in his direct report group. And he's got to learn how to manage them differently. And that sometimes what looks like either disengagement or combativeness is actually just that person being frustrated. And that doesn't mean it's okay, but how you respond to it is different depending on what's actually happening. And sometimes we respond in a way that amplifies the problem rather than solves it.
Isn't that the truth? It's like adding gasoline to the fire and it just makes it worse. I like the fable. I'm actually exploring something new and looking into writing a children's book, and I'm doing it kind of a similar storyline using animals instead of character. Those are my characters where I think children can go. oh, Timmy the turtle, or Patches the puppy. And it's about attachment styles and relationships, of course. And I think it's helpful for kids to understand their emotions early on, because what we're
Mm-hmm.
looking at, what you and I are doing later, is we're dealing with adults that haven't dealt with the stuff from age 7, 8, 9, and so on. And it's showing up in their leadership patterns, their career, their relationships, and so on. So I like that mindset. I think it makes it fun to read
Mm-hmm.
something that kind of puts you in a story. Learning can be fun. A lot of those nonfiction books are just heavy. That's why we didn't finish them,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
And,
we want them on our shelf. It's like a badge of honor.
hey, it's so funny because like sometimes you'll ask people about a particular book and they're like, yeah, I never really got through it. Well, I don't think our goal should be necessarily to finish a book, because sometimes you can get a lot out of, just it's what you apply with the knowledge that's critical, right? Um, but I actually was, the reason I say I'm sort of funny that I do what I do today was because I was actually elected the most likely to fall asleep during training in my previous career. I I was so
Oh,
bored. And I was like, well, when I do what I decided to do, what I do today, and do executive coaching, I said we're going to do it differently, because I get what it's like to be on the other side of that, where it's just like, why is this person here, and why are they talking about widgets, and they don't understand the business.
right.
We do things a little bit differently, and what I've been doing now for really almost 30 years is trying to create models that make complex things simple. And I think the reason why most business books are long is because they've taken a simple concept and made it complicated. And that's easier
Hmm.
to do, by the way. You can complicate almost anything. But a shorter book is harder. So the book, the Four Faces book, is probably about a 2-hour read. And
Okay.
because, and the chapters are super short, because I know sometimes people, you know, they don't get to read a long chapter. So
Right.
if the chapters are short, they can stop whenever they need to.
I love it. I'm going to recommend it on my next client call, just kind of in the Microsoft organization. And especially if it's an easy read like that, it's more
Mm-hmm.
embraced by the team. It's when you hand them this big, thick book and they're like, really, I don't have time for this. If
Right.
it's something that's quick and bite sized, it just has a better outcome overall and
Yeah.
embrace. Very
Agreed.
cool. I want to just kind of shift gears a little bit here before I let you go. You talk about, we've got the communication style, the
Mm-hmm.
frustration pieces.
Yeah.
What do I get to do as a leader? Do I embrace it, and do I introduce the book to the team? Or do I just keep all this knowledge to myself? I'm like, oh, red faced person, this is when I'm gonna go in this direction, and try to pour some water on that fire a little bit and calm that person down? Or do I just accept them for who they are and embrace them for who they are and work around it, navigate it? What's the best direction? Because this is very helpful. I love this type of content.
Yeah. I think when we work with teams, what we find is most teams are not teams. They're a collection of talented individuals that work on projects together. Um, and we look at other people. Well, one of my favorite things to do with new leaders is I'll say to them, so are you ever frustrated by people that you manage now? And you think, I would never have acted that way. Why would they do that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, well, you know what the problem is, right? You think you're normal. And they're like, what? You mean I'm not? I'm like, well, I'm not saying you're abnormal, but I'm saying normal is a statistical reference to something that's more likely to occur. And in leadership, there's no such real thing as normal. Just because they don't respond the way you would like them to or the way they should, it doesn't mean it may be normal for them not to. It doesn't mean it's acceptable or okay or expected or what we want. But when you make it abnormal, then you make them wrong. And when you make people wrong, they become defensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we really want to do is open people's minds. And what I found is the way to open people's minds is with a chisel, not a hammer. And so, when you give them a book like this and then you talk about it and say, so what style do you think you are? Um, and they're like, I think I'm this person. And like in the book, we go through the characters have their foibles, their weaknesses, and their strengths. They're like, so it's easier to hang a difficult conversation off the fact that, hey, you're a yellow. And in the book, some of the challenges with yellows are these. Do you think those are ever challenges for you? And it's easier for people to read them and go, yeah, I could sort of see how that might be the case, because they actually came to that awareness themselves rather than me telling them, you have an issue with this. What most people do then is they become defensive. And when you become defensive, all learning ceases. And when learning ceases, long-term behavior change goes away. And then leaders become frustrated because I keep having to have the same conversations over and over and over. So what I've done with teams is, and it doesn't need to be this book, whatever book you read, like, don't just give them the book. I mean, talk about it with them.
Right.
Which character, in this case, what character you most identify with in the book? And which one is the one that you think that's the person I probably have the most challenge with?
And I love that it's not a right or wrong or normal or abnormal. This is who I am. This is how I'm wired. For whatever reasons, life has patterned and shaped me into this person who you see. And how can I be better, shift, or change? And I love that just that room and fluidity to grow and change. I think that's the big part of working with the team. Again, not pointing fingers like, oh, this person's this, and now we're all going to gang up on the red faces. It's not, but make it more playful, as a fun way to learn. And every workshop I've ever done with even like other assessments, it was fun to learn like, oh, I'm really good at this, but I'm really bad here.
Yes.
This person over here's got this huge wealth of skill set that I don't have. How can I pair up with them on this project and, knock it out of the park? And just seeing how these intricate puzzle pieces of a team can all fit together and create, an abundant mindset and abundant growth.
Yeah.
Go on forward. I think it's kind of fun. And in fact, I can't wait. I'm just going to get the book right after we talk. And I'm sorry I didn't get it beforehand. I should have. But the questions are more fun when I don't know what I'm asking, like I'm going in blind.
So this is the clearest indication yet that you're a yellow, by the way.
Okay.
I said this to a client one time. I was like about to do a presentation. She had about 100 of her direct reports in the room, and I have a lot of yellow in my style. And I had this thought right before I went on stage. I'm like, oh, I have the coolest thing. I've never tried it before, but I think this is going to be amazing. Now, she was a blue. And you should have seen the look of panic on her face. You've never tried it before, and you're about to do it live. And to me, that was just exciting. To her, as a blue, she's like, that is not okay, And I realized, I said, no, I have done it before, just not I'm doing a little pivot on it, because I thought she was about to melt down.
Right.
So
this does not match my checklist. I'm task oriented, must match all the script, and these are the rules.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I've always been somewhat obsessed, and yes, I think yellows we're more feeling type of people, or we've got a lot of empathy and emotional at times, but we're also very warm. Mm-hmm. But we can be a little too positive. I think working in the coaching industry for almost 20 years now, that I've learned to balance. Okay, Karie, it's like, get the reality in here, get the logic. Things aren't adding up. As much as you want to have a positive spin on this, let's get some, structure in place. Blueprints not matching your mindset over here, or the track record or the KPIs or whatever we're looking at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's self-awareness is key. I agree with you 100%. You cannot learn about others until you first look in the mirror. You just cannot. You have to understand yourself first and then step forward, working with the team. It's huge. So as we kind of close, I want to talk about just a little bit about the things that you offer.
Yes.
How people can work with you. We already know where to get the book. Mm-hmm. Kind of give me how do you even work with clients? How do you land at Coca-Cola? Just coming out of the gate, just moving to America. No, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, the progressive one was actually the one that's the clearest line. When I mentioned I was doing all those presentations one year, I had I did this presentation one night, and I got a call the next morning from this young lady, and she said, "Hey, would you like to come talk to Eric Neely? He's the head of progressive for the state of Georgia." And I was like, "Sure." I said, "But how'd you find me?" And she's like, "I was in your presentation last night." So she was a part-time realtor, and she was his assistant. She went into work all excited the next day. "You got to talk to this guy. I know you got all these performance issues." So we went in and we did what we always do when we work with large organizations. We want to know what performance metrics would change if leadership improved. And so, because he said, "I want leadership," and I'm like, "Why?" And we talked about timeliness. We decided we would measure timeliness as part of the success of the process, and that led to a series of engagements in the state of Georgia, Maryland, Kentucky, all these different parts of progressive. And then we started working nationally with progressive. And so it really, that's why I said the hard work always precedes being lucky.
Right.
I could have called on progressive till I was blue in the face and probably wouldn't have made a difference. Right now, once you start getting a pedigree of people you've worked with, then other people want to talk to you because you can point to those people. But our leadership process, which is our core leadership development program, we do it in 3 ways. We do it in a cohort format, either internally with companies, or if an entrepreneur wants to come and attend themselves, they can come and attend that particular program, just 1 or up to 3 of their people in a particular cohort. We do those probably 6 or 7 times a year. We do those cohorts. Sometimes we'll do one-on-one coaching. I try not to do too much of that, but we do some one-on-one coaching with executives, just because it takes a lot of time. And then we do, strategic planning with organizations as well. So you'll see the 3 levels of how we work with organizations. But what I've found is that, and you probably found this too, Karie, like for us, we'd rather give away a bunch of stuff first, and let people like test drive what we do. And so we have a workshop we do, for people who want to know more, or if they don't even want to know more, they just want to have some free training, because if I always figure if they go through that workshop and then they want to talk to us, they're at a much different place. They understand the core concepts, which we teach, the models, some of the models that we're working on, and they're much more self-aware about what they'd like to accomplish. And so we do those workshops. They're completely free. And when people register for the workshop, we give them the book as our gift to them. So you can order it on Amazon. Love that, but if you're interested in knowing more, if you sign up for the workshop, we'll just mail you the book for free. And that's our gift to you. One of my first mentors said, if you stop worrying about where your next client's coming from and you serve people really well, you'll never have to worry where your next clients are coming from. And so that's the model we've pursued for quite a few years.
Couldn't agree more. That's where it's just helping people, and there's so much fulfillment in that. I also think it's great business model, looking at it from a marketing brain that I have, of you're kind of weeding out who's not going to be an ideal client. If you did the workshop and they don't love it or didn't even complete it or don't even care, they're not going to be somebody that's going to hire you, or pass your name along to someone else. So, but those that are hungry for more will find you.
One of the things we tell the prospective clients, and every time we hire a new staff member, they flip out when we tell them this is our promise to our clients. So for 30 years now, we've said that if at the end of the engagement you feel like we have not met your expectations, we will refund every part of your fee you feel is appropriate. And we've never had to refund any money.
Wow.
And the reason is, I had a client tell me one time, he's like, "I know what you're doing." I'm like, "What is it?" And he said, "It's client selection." And so you're right. It's client selection. Like if I talked to a client earlier this week, and he's going to come and be part of our next cohort. And I wanted him to be able to ask me questions, but I wanted to ask him questions to see if I really thought this would help him. Because if it wasn't going to, I don't want an unfulfilled obligation. I'd rather give the money back if that was the case. Now, I've never had to, but I would,
Mm-hmm.
if we ever, because that's on me if I allow somebody to start doing work with our organization. And we tell all our coaches the same thing. Don't start working with somebody if you don't think you can really help them.
Right. Or if they're not really in it, they're just not, there's no skin in the game. They're just kind of like, they want you to come along with your little fairy magic dust and fix everything, but not do the work. And there's a lot of those, you know this.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Yep.
Got to do the work, got to double down. Beautiful. So I will put that in the show notes, links to your site, links to the workshop, links to the book if you want to bypass the workshop altogether.
Sure. Yeah.
All of it's great. All of it's great. Any closing thoughts before I let you back out into the wild free?
Yeah.
As a yellow red. No, I'm just kidding.
I would just challenge your listeners, you don't have to be sick to get better. You should be in a continual process of improvement. And years ago, I remember I was working with a particular mentor, and I called them up, and I'd really been struggling for quite some time with a particular challenge. And I called him up, and his name was Bob. I said, "Bob, I get it." And he laughed at me. And he was not the kinder, gentler mentor. He laughed at me. He said, "Oxley, you don't get it. I don't get it. Nobody gets it. This journey has no finish line." And that could either be depressing or it could be exciting. The exciting part is that I don't have to work more hours to get better results. At some point in your life, you're like, and this goes back to your balance question you said earlier, Karie, if you think you can work more hours to become more successful, at some point you're going to run out of hours. Okay. So I'm not saying hard work's not important, but at some point you're going to run out of hours, and you have to ask yourself, okay, how do I need to change? How do I need to be different? And for most of us, we don't have to walk that path that no one has ever walked down. You can find a coach. You can find somebody who has a mentor who has that experience. And we always say, well, our situation's different. I'm sure you've heard that a million times, and so have I. I'm like, no, it's really not. The problems just replicate. They're the same problems with a little bit of different dressing on them. And you're not that unique. And that's what someone told me years ago. You're just not that unique.
Right.
Your problems are, to a great degree, similar to every other leader's problems, right? And so there's two ways to learn anything. You can learn it from the school of hard knocks, or you can learn it through the experience of others. And we are so proud of our skin, knees, and our bruises. And we learned it all ourselves. And it's just the hardest way to learn. So find somebody who can help you.
Yes. Avoid the potholes. Go with someone that's already fallen in a few.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
I love your knots. Don't have to wait till you're sick. It reminds me of, because I've done wellness coaching too. That's how I started forever ago. My baby girl was just little. But an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, is what we would say. Like, just get ahead of it.
Yes.
Don't wait till you're broken down on the side of the highway. Get ahead of it. Get the maintenance in place.
Yes, absolutely.
I love it. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely, Andrew. I am excited to share this with my audience, and I cannot thank you enough for your time today.
Well, I've totally enjoyed it, Karie. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Big hugs, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.
Hi there, friend. If you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor and double check that you're subscribed or following. And if you've got a quick 30 seconds, it would mean the world to me if you could leave me a 5-star review and share what you specifically liked about this episode.